Hello, everyone. On September 23rd, the dark circle of the year starts with the fall equinox or autumnal equinox. And it's a moment in time when light and darkness are of equal proportion. And after that, the balance is going to be tilted and we are entering the dark circle. And for the next 3 months, it's getting darker and darker. The sun will rise later and later and set earlier and earlier, and its position at noon will be lower and lower. And especially in London, this is not a very nice period because it's really, really dark. And for those who don't like darkness and don't like the cold, this is a miserable period. And even after the sun turns around at the solstice, at the winter solstice, there's probably a couple of weeks before we realize that, yeah, maybe the days are a little bit longer, but it's still very dark and gloomy and it's very, very cold. So that's why I'm telling you that this is the dark circle of the year. Let's take a look at the London chart. This is for those who are also watching the Hungarian version, and you know Hungarian, Magyar, this will be much shorter simply because the placements are not as prominent for the London chart. So here's a diagram that shows what is happening because the Earth axis is tilted, and as we are rotating around ourselves, it makes a 23.4 degree angle towards the orbit around the sun, and that is why we have the seasons. And this is a beautiful photo by György Soponyai. He's a Hungarian photographer. It's really brilliant because it shows us the three potential positions. The southernmost position is at our winter solstice. The northernmost position of the sun is at the summer solstice. And on the two equinoxes, this is where we have the sun. This is the celestial equator. So that's where we are now. And let's take a look at the London chart. And these conjunctions that I encircled, except for the vertex on the North Node Aries conjunction, everything else will be the same no matter where you have erected the chart. And there are some highlights, and you have to understand that when we have a chart with lots of conjunctions, it could mean two things. If you understand the fact that if you are in a pair, if you have a partner or just a friend, the two of you are a lot more than your separate entities. And also when you have a family, the family is more than just a pair, and so on. A whole nation is more than the families. So the more complex the structure, the more potentials it carries. So any conjunction really can mean that the native or the space-time moment has more potentials for growth or for evolving. And it also means at the same time that especially for natal charts, that when you have a conjunction or many conjunctions within a chart, that the native wasn't sure enough if one archetype is enough for that particular position, and it needed some sort of assurance that the two archetypes are going to be a lot more efficient. So this is what's going to happen in this equinox chart. The sun is conjunct Pallas Athena. I did not circle it because it's not an exact conjunction, but it is applying. It will take another couple of days, maybe a week, or 8-10 days before the sun is actually going to be exactly conjunct Pallas Athena. But still, the space-time moment carries the potential to be wise, or the sun is highlighting this potential. We have a 12th house sun, which indicates that this hidden agenda by the leaders will have some difficulty manifesting, especially in England. And at the moment, I must tell you that the classic party division. Like you have the Labour Party, which is for the little people, and then you have the Tories, who are for the aristocracy. This is no longer true. You have globalists and you have nationalists, and it doesn't matter which party label you are carrying. It is a different attitude. The globalists want a global government. They want a one world. It's so funny because about 20 years ago, when I was starting to travel long distance with British Airways, I had to stay in the United States for quite some while, and I used British Airways for that because I could break the journey in London. And there was this questionnaire that someone approached me at the airport. And what it was it was an alliance between major air travel companies, major airlines, and it was called One World Alliance. And even then, I had this very nasty feeling that this is going to suggest that, okay, yes, they want one world. And yeah, there's an agenda. If you look at the World Economic Forum and your very own Richard, that was a Freudian slip. Charles III. I am reading a novel on Richard III's reign at the moment, and he was also the third in his name, and your own king at the moment is also the third, but he's of course Charles. Anyhow, so Charles is a very big advocate of the World Economic Forum and this One World Alliance. So this placement indicates to me that your leaders, and again, it doesn't matter whether they are Whig or Tory, whether they are Labour or Tory, it doesn't matter, because you will have globalists who are for this agenda, and you have nationalists who want to keep the nation states. And the big 21st century battle will be between these two forces. And the fact that the sun is in the 12th house indicates that their agenda can remain hidden. The general public won't understand what is going on. At the same time, the North Node is exactly conjunct Aries and the vertex. So this war rhetoric will continue. And the fact that the North Node is conjunct Aries is one of this year's main karmic astrological features. Our duty, our task, our destiny choice is to learn to fight for ourselves, to be self-assertive, to exercise our will. And Aries, which denotes disruption and war, and Aries in Greek mythology was the demon of discord and so that we have to suffer through this discord that is happening at the moment. And the last time there was a major war in Europe was, of course, the Yugoslavian war in 1991 or 2 or 3, something like that. And before that, of course, the Second World War. So we lost our touch with wars. But now at the moment, there is a huge war going on. And this is not a Ukrainian-Russian war. This is a proxy war that the West is fighting against the East. And it could escalate. So that's what it shows. And of course, Chiron is at the moment retrograde, but it eventually will be conjunct both the North Node and Aries. And the fact that the vertex is in the London chart means that we won't be able to avoid drastically altered outward circumstances, Aries, and it is kind of our destiny. I forgot to tell you that, of course, Libra is rising, showing that the general public is really complying with everything. We don't want, this is the general feeling of the people, and we don't want war. We want peace. We want equilibrium, and this is what Libra Sun is about. But Mars and asteroid Lilith are rising. They are in the first house, which rule the Chiron, Aries, North Node, vertex conjunction, and of course the descendant as well. So you might fight against injustice, of course, not with very potent means, because Mars in Libra is in its detriment, and of course it means that we can fight intellectually. There's also still the Juno-Venus conjunction at the cusp of the 11th house in Leo. So we can still make alliances, either financial or out of heart. And of course, there's also the Austria-Vesta conjunction focus on karma breaking. We have in this chart a Capricorn moon that is not very, very nice. So the people, okay, the subjects, so to speak, are kind of depressed. They don't know what to do. And it's close to the IC, but not really very, very close. And the moon has a very special position, which I'm going to show you in a minute. The Capricorn moon really suggests that this is not a very nice period. It's not going to be a nice period. It's going to be dark and gloomy and depressed. We are going to feel like this. But at least we can talk about it because it's in the 3rd house. Now, there are some important midpoint structures. Let's take a look at the MC and the IC rulers. Actually, I did not look at the IC ruler, sorry, only just the MC ruler, but I did look at the sun, sun's main midpoints, simply because the sun is the main protagonist of this chart, the 12th house sun, and it does have two midpoints that are kind of relevant for us. One is the Mars-Mercury midpoint, and this gives us hope that we can actually talk about Mercury, what is bothering us. Mercury-Mars in the natal chart shows that you could be wounded, or you can use wounding words. So you are able to express your self-assertion through words. But of course, this Mars is in detriment, so it's not going to be quite easy. And the Pluto-Sedna midpoint is important because the Pluto-Sedna trine is the second, or maybe the first most important karmic astrological feature of the year and next year as well. Pluto-Sedna engaged in a trine a couple of months earlier at the end, so it was an energetic trine at the end of Earth signs. And Sedna is creation through dissection, and Pluto is complete transformation. And this gives us hope that we will be able to rearrange the non-working segments of our life, individually and collectively as well. But it also is interesting that the whole thing occurred in Earth signs, but it was an energetic. So there is this potential not to succeed, the potential to have this kind of stalled energy, as the energetic degree usually suggests. And the Earth means that we should have done this in a practical, down-to-earth way. Whether we can do it is another question. Once again, there will be another energetic Earth trine between the two, and then when Pluto moves into Aquarius, there will be another one in Earth sign, in air signs, because by then Sedna will be back at the very beginning of Gemini. It will also move back into Taurus for a couple of months and then go back into the 0 degree Gemini. And that is where the third trine will occur. And that's a shift, first of all, because at 0 degrees, the signs are very potent, and air signs show that we need to think, and the rearrangement first needs to be occurring in our heads, in a theoretical mental position. And the moon is the MC ruler in the London chart, so it's very important. This moon in detriment rules the IC, is close to the IC and rules the MC, and there are 3 midpoints which I highlight. It is because the Juno-Venus conjunction makes the midpoint with Uranus to the moon. Venus-Uranus is about freedom and commitment urges, and Juno-Uranus is quite the same. So how can we get out of alliances? How can we get out of debilitating and or financially not very nice relationships? This is going to be the question. And the Mars-Neptune is chivalry. Mars-Neptune is always about whether or not we can fight for a noble cause, but it's also the Don Quixote energy, and the moon at the midpoint of this is a mundane chart, suggests to me that we will get fed up with war and chivalry in big proportions. And then the next slide, hopefully I can show it to you. The moon is very, very out of bounds. I will show you in a planetarium picture as well. It is minus 28.14, so it's very, very out of bounds. It's almost 5 degrees above the ecliptic, actually below the ecliptic, towards the towards the south, which means that not only have we a Capricorn moon, which is in its detriment, so the general public feels depressed and feels poor and oppressed and sad and oppressed and depressed. Both are relevant, but also it means that we are relegated to the dark side of things, that we are left out of things, that we have left our normal everyday course, which is the ecliptic, and we are thrown out into the universe at large, into the dark recesses of the universe. So it's not a nice position. Those who have an out of bounds moon have this very deep feeling inside that they don't belong to anyone. And now this is how we will feel, that we don't, and this is again for the whole world, because simply because at the moment of the equinox, the moon will be at such out of bounds position. So the whole general public of the world, of the earth, will feel threatened, depressed, oppressed, and left out in the dark. This is the general feeling that's going to happen for the next 3 months. And there are 6 planets that are retrograde out of Jupiter. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron are all going backwards. And this gives us the potential to go retrospect, to find answers within. It's going to stall things. So nothing is going to move forward, which to me suggests that the war is going to rage further on, and some things are not going to happen only in the inner recesses of our own souls. Here's the planetarium picture. You can see this is the celestial equator. One such graph is 10 degrees. This is the ecliptic. This, by the way, is the winter solstice point. So the sun at 0 degrees Capricorn will be here. And as the sun is at 6 degrees Capricorn, it is barely away. But you can see that it's very, very out to the south. It's very, very far away, almost at the outermost position of potential position of the moon. So this is a very, very dark and gloomy place to be. So it adds to the miseries of the fact that it is a Capricorn moon. Okay, but we may have some hope, because there are some nice structures. If you take a look at the at somewhere between 0 and 2-3 degrees, there is a grand trine, a water grand trine, involving Ceres, the nurturing principle, Saturn, Lord of Karma, which is at the moment retrograde, and the Astrea Vesta conjunction, which suggests that we will have some energy or some potential. Of course, the trine, the grand trine, doesn't have any energy and doesn't have any moving potential, only just potential there. But luckily, the trapeze is going to move it. But anyhow, so it gives us hope, let's put it this way, to create some sort of harmony between our nurturing principles, our duties, and our potential to do karma breaking, destiny changing. And there's a 10th trapeze. The base is the Sun-Saturn trine, Autumnal trine, quincunx. We simply must create some sort of solid ground in order to function. One square is a cardinal square between Sun and Vesta Astrea. So the Sun is highlighting this potential, how to break old embedded karma, how to create new potentials, new destiny. and the Sedna-Saturn square, which is a mutable square, which shows that in order to have this new ground Saturn, we need to look at the non-working segments of our life and change it in general and in particular. And then here are the transcendental objects for this chart. On the sun, you have Gorgo, which is one of the sisters, among which there's Medusa, who is turned into a horrible monster with snakes in her hair, and she can turn anyone into stone, to turn to stone by her stare. So this is a very dark and gloomy potential, but of course there's the supergalactic center as well. But I must add that for the last 200 years and probably for the next 200 years, the sun at the equinox will always be at the supergalactic center. So it's not something new, but it is a window for us to understand that this is a very karmic position because the supergalactic center is it's the M87 Messier object, and it's one of the key celestial areas in karmic astrology. And it describes the karmic dilemma of nothing is ever enough. And if you look at the timing, this is when this very, very greedy capitalism actually came into being. So instead of creating balance, we have created horrible injustice and horrible discrepancies between people. On Saturn, you have Spartacus and Karma. So you have a slave leader who actually tried to carry out a revolution but didn't succeed, and Karma, so the Lord of Karma is on Karma. This suggests that whatever we do will kind of occupy our karmic spot, so to speak. So actually we are creating new karma at the moment. On Ceres, you have Demeter, Tyr, and Narcissus. These are the same objects that we had a couple of days ago. On Vesta Astrea, you have Chaos and Asbolus. Asbolus is a centaur who is a seer, but whenever he says something that is true, the other centaurs disregard him, and whenever he makes a mistake, they ridicule him. And this is actually happening. There are whistleblowers all around the world who are trying to show the general public that there's going to be a horrible change towards the worst if we really want to create this one world alliance. Because then instead of nation states and instead of nation state leaders who actually are important, if you belong to a nation state and you belong to a nation, then you will work towards that nation. If you have a global corporation that doesn't care for anything, okay, and that is pure enslavement. So we need to be very, very careful. And those who are trying to show what is happening, most of the time they are either ridiculed or silenced. So that's here a hindering effect. But actually you could utilize it for your karma breaking abilities. And then chaos, which was very prominent at the summer solstice because it was conjunct the sun. The solstice sun is now at the Vesta Astrea conjunction, which means that we can focus on karma breaking by actually realizing that this is a programmed chaos, what is happening. The powers that be are programming a chaos for us in order then to push us into severe servitude. Saturn and Spartacus is showing this. But chaos is also a new potential. So we could actually use chaotic processes in order to create a new world for us, which is to our liking. So it is really depending on us. On Saturn, you have more Somnus than the Pleiades. Not Saturn, sorry, Sedna. The Pleiades will be there for another year or two because Sedna is not moving anywhere, and more Somnus, another TNO, which was prominent at the pandemic. You can see that now the cases are picking up. Just to tell you something, okay, the mucus in your nasal area and throat are actually working as a filter system. So it's always full of bacteria. And so when someone wants to take what is it? A testing, yes. They will always find some sort of coronaviruses there, simply because coronavirus is the common cold. Yes, I understand that this COVID-19 is not a common coronavirus because they manufactured it, and it's a lot more dangerous than just a common cold. But what I'm trying to tell you, all tests are really bogus, because yes, you will find them in your throat or in your nose. So it's ridiculous. Anyhow, and then that's what we have here. And there's also a beautiful fire air kite. Now, as I said, ground trines are not moving really too much, because you have 3 trines, and trines are very lazy patterns because nothing is able to move them. But when you have a kite, so when you have an opposition to one of its corners, the whole thing is starting to move. What do you need for fire to rage, to burn? Air. And this is exactly what's happening in this kite. And the air is provided by the Mars-Lilith conjunction. So this is around 18 to 20 degrees. The kite involves Chiron in Aries, and the Venus-Juno conjunction in Leo, Mars-Lilith in Libra, and the dark moon. So you have 2 Liliths in the picture, quite interestingly. So the anchor point is Mars and Lilith, and you have two asteroids, Plato and Geisha. I don't think I need to express what they are. On Juno, Venus, you have Lancelot, Diomedes, Phaeton, and Merlin. So you have a shining knight in shining armor, you have a fighter, you have a magician, and Phaeton is a figure in Greek mythology. He is one of the sons of Helios, the sun god. And one day he steals his chariot, and of course there's a huge disaster. So Phaeton is a kind of telling us that be careful with alliances, and watch very carefully what sort of alliances the powers that be and the money people make, Venus, because it might cause some sort of a huge disaster. And on dark moon, you have Freya, Ambrosia, Varda, and Huya. Huya is linked to, he's a Venezuelan rain god and one of the TNOs. He's linked to black magic. Freya, of course, is the fighter, one of the Norse fighting goddesses. And Ambrosia is it suggests that it's the food of the gods. And Ambrosia is always relevant in big cataclysms and tragedies, because it shows whether or not you can survive it with the grace of the gods, whether they provide you with some sort of food for survival. And there's one more structure here in the London chart, which I'm going to show you. There is a yod, and this is kind of dissolved by the sun, because again, the Pluto-Neptune sextile, which was very prominent in the 20th century, then it moved into a septile, 1/7 of the circle, 51 degrees and 27 minutes. And now it is again applying for a sextile. So we will have this structure again next year. And for this, again, another Lilith is again prominent. This is the Black Moon Lilith, the 3rd turning point of the Lilith myths, and it has Sila Nunam, and that is one of the major figures in mythology, where it describes a turning point. That's what's key. So because one is an earth goddess, and the other one is a sky god, and so the manifestation of earthly and divine things, how to utilize them in decisions. And Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, is about how you can hold your place and do what's right, despite the fact that you are thrown out and banished from the Garden of Eden. That is the third, as I said, the third turning point of the Lilith myths. So that is the by the way, yes, on Neptune you have Pandora and Clotho. Clotho is the first of the fates who is creating the threads for your life, and Pandora was very prominent. This asteroid was very, very prominent in the early stages and turning points of the Ukrainian war. So here on Neptune, you again have this, unfortunately. So that's what I think, that the war will be keeping on for quite a while, which is horrible, which is really horrible. And I can't tell you how sad I am, because a whole nation is being slaughtered. The young people are being replaced by, I don't know. Now they are listing even the invalids. And soon you will see NATO troops as well. And that may then really escalate into the Third World War. This should stop by all means. So this is the equinox chart. Again, to sum it up, we will have many potentials for change. We will have many potentials to create something out of this chaos, this chaotic world. Let's hope we will be able to. Thank you for listening. Bye.